When my daughter told me I wasn't welcome for Christmas, I simply smiled, got in my car, and drove home. 2 days later, I had 58 missed calls. What she didn't know was that I was hiding a secret, one that would change everything forever. Let me tell you, because this story runs much deeper than you can imagine. For 20 years, I had sacrificed everything for my family. I worked 60-hour weeks to give my daughter, Sara, the best life I could. I paid for her college tuition, $40,000 a year. It was a Friday in December when Sara called. Her voice was different, cold. "Dad, I need to talk to you about Christmas." My heart began to race. For 25 years, we had never spent a Christmas apart. It was our most sacred tradition. "We've decided it would be better if you didn't come this year." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "That's right, Dad. Ricardo thinks you interfere too much in our lives, and I agree." Ricardo had been her husband for 3 years. I was silent for a few seconds. "Interfering how, Sara?" I asked. "Always giving unsolicited advice, always questioning our financial decisions. Every accusation was like a knife twist. Everything I did was out of love, but my love was being seen as interference." "I understand," I finally said, keeping my voice calm. "If this is what you both want, I'll respect it." She seemed surprised. "Really? You're not going to argue?" "No, sweetheart, you're an adult." An uncomfortable silence hung between us. "Okay then. Talk to you later, Dad." And she hung up. I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes before turning the key in the ignition. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled, because in that very moment, I made a decision I had been considering for the last 6 months. What Sara didn't know was that I was already in the process of selling my company. Arriving home, I called Dr. Martinez, my lawyer for 15 years. "I want to accelerate everything," I told him. "Roberto, are you sure? Once we sign on Monday, there's no going back." "I've never been more certain." The buyers were just waiting for my final decision. You see, for years, I had been the family bank. When Sara needed money for college, I paid. A trip to Europe? I financed it. Her car broke down? I bought her a new one. The wedding? I paid for a $150,000 party. I was always the provider. But now, I was being cast aside. That Saturday and Sunday passed in a strange calm. I went about my routine: gym, lunch, reading. I didn't call Sara, didn't send a text. I kept my word, but inside I was finalizing every detail of my radical new plan. On Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I signed the papers. I sold my company for $8 million. 30 years of work transformed into a number in a bank account. But it wasn't about the money. It was about freedom. At 60 years old, I was starting my life over. For the first time in 30 years, I was free, truly free. No employees, no urgent decisions, no constant pressure. I sat in my armchair and remained silent for an hour. It was liberating. Now came the most important part: discovering who I really was. On Tuesday, I woke with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. I did something unthinkable. I bought a plane ticket to Portugal for the following month. 15 years ago, I had promised my late wife that I would visit the land of our grandparents, that I would see the Douro vineyards she had dreamed of visiting. I also made another decision, one that defined who I truly was. I called 3 charities: the local home for the elderly, the Children's Cancer Foundation, and the City Hospital. To each, I would donate $1 million. This was about my values, not about solving other people's problems. On Wednesday, I began to organize my move. I put the house up for sale. I separated furniture to donate and to sell. The luxury car would be sold too. I wanted a simple start in Portugal with only the essentials. I wanted to be just Roberto, not the successful businessman. The hardest part was going through the photos. 25 years of memories with Sara, her first day of school, her graduations, her wedding. I saw a proud father, but also a man who had lost himself along the way. I set aside the special ones to take with me and organized the rest to leave for Sara. On Thursday, I did something I hadn't done in years. I walked through the city without a schedule, visited places from my childhood, chatted with people in the park, and had lunch where no one knew me as the businessman. For the first time in decades, I was just Roberto, and I knew this was who I wanted to be. Friday arrived, a full week since Sara's call. I still hadn't spoken to her. I didn't know if she had even noticed my absence. Our communication had always been about what she needed. Perhaps she was finally discovering what it was like to live without her father being available 24/7. It was then that the first sign of a shift occurred. My phone rang. It was Ricardo. In 3 years, he had never called me directly. "Hi, Roberto, can we talk?" His voice was laced with concern. "It's about Sara. She's been acting strange all week, asking if you've called." "I see," I replied calmly. "She doesn't know I'm calling, but I think she misses you. She keeps talking about things you used to do, places you used to go." I was surprised by his sincerity. "Ricardo, you both said I interfered too much. I'm just respecting that." "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. It wasn't anger I felt, but a mixture of sadness and validation. Sadness that my daughter was hurting, but validation that at last she was feeling my absence. Sometimes we need to lose something to realize its importance. Saturday morning, exactly 1 week later, my phone began to ring. "Sara." I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, it rang again. This was the beginning of the 58 missed calls over the next 2 days. Each ring confirmed my decision. I had value. The text messages arrived in an avalanche. "Dad, please call me. Dad, I'm worried. Dad, I'm sorry for everything. Dad, I miss you. Dad, don't abandon me." It was fascinating to watch the dynamic shift. For the first time in years, she was desperately trying to reach me. On Sunday afternoon, she appeared at my house. She rang the doorbell for 10 straight minutes. I was in the living room. I could see her through the window. She was visibly distressed. For a moment, I thought about opening the door, but then I remembered all the times she had been too busy for a simple lunch. She stayed at my door for 40 minutes. She yelled my name several times. "Dad, I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm afraid I've lost you." When she finally left, I knew I had succeeded. She was feeling the fear of losing someone important. Sunday night was the deepest silence I had ever experienced. Only 3 missed calls. Sara had stopped trying. I wondered if I'd gone too far, but then I remembered all the years I had chased after her. Perhaps our relationship needed a complete reset. Monday morning at 7, my phone rang. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Carmen. "Roberto, there's a young woman here asking about you. Says she's your daughter. She's asking if you sold the company." My heart skipped a beat. Sara had discovered the sale. The last secret was revealed. Mrs. Carmen, please tell her I'm traveling and I don't know when I'll be back. It was a white lie, but a necessary one. I wasn't ready for the final confrontation. Sara now knew the truth, and that changed everything. She understood that my absence wasn't a tantrum, it was a conscious decision to restart my life. 2 hours later, she was at my doorstep again, this time with Ricardo, who looked deeply uncomfortable. I could see a mixture of desperation, anger, and fear in her eyes. It was time for the conversation we had been avoiding for years, the one that would define whether we could still be father and daughter. I opened the door and saw them standing there like two lost children. Dad, Sara began, her eyes red. Is it true? Did you sell the company? Mrs. Carmen said you're moving away. It's true, I answered calmly. The tension was palpable. The last 25 years were being weighed in that single moment. Why didn't you tell me? Why am I finding this out from other people? She asked, her voice trembling. Because you made it very clear you didn't want my interference in your life. I assumed the feeling was mutual. Sara, for 25 years, our relationship has been about your needs. It was never about who I am beyond being your provider. Ricardo remained silent, a statue of discomfort. For 25 years, I've just been the father who solves problems. Now, I want to find out who Roberto is. She began to cry, and these weren't tears of manipulation. They were tears of recognition. She was finally understanding what she had lost. But I love you, Dad. I was just stressed. I didn't want you to disappear. And I love you too, my daughter. But love doesn't mean being perpetually available, only to be rejected. True love includes self-respect. I handed her a letter I had written. Everything I've wanted to say to you for years is in here. Dad, are you really going to Portugal? Are you going to abandon me? I'm not abandoning you, Sara. I am choosing myself for the first time in decades. You're 28 years old. You're married. It's time for me to build my own life, too. It was the most difficult goodbye, but also the most necessary. 3 weeks passed before my flight. They were 3 weeks of reconstruction. Sara reached out every day, but this time it was different. She asked questions about me, my dreams, my fears. At the airport, she hugged me tight. Thank you for teaching me that you have your own worth, Dad. Now, 6 months later, I'm in a small town near Porto. I bought a simple house with a view of the vineyards. Every day, I drink wine and think of my wife. Sara writes me long letters every week, not asking for money, but letters from a daughter getting to know her father as a person. Our relationship has completely changed. She tells me about her job, her insecurities, her plans. I share my adventures in Portugal. We've become friends beyond just father and daughter. And the most interesting part, she has become more independent, as if my constant presence had been preventing her from growing. If you are a parent listening to this, remember, being a provider is important, but don't lose yourself in that role. You have a right to your own dignity. And if you are a son or daughter, remember this. Your parents were people long before they were your providers. Sometimes it takes 58 missed calls to truly understand the value of the people in our lives.